George and Seb rolling down the road. RGT riding shotgun, a heavy load. Pastor Longhorn waiting to unfold. In El Paso, Texas tales been told.
Hello and welcome to the Unofficial Controller Podcast, your weekly gaming podcast, episode number 243 with me, George, and this week joined by Triple S, King of the Cults to my barely an adult. How's it going?
We're starting off like that. I love it.
Sometimes you got to work the rhyme,
yeah,
to make it work for you that time.
I love it. Everything's going well. It was kind of like this year in gaming has been the quiet before the storm that has been like the late Q3, Q4, or early Q4 time for me. So I'm like,
Sure.
This is the most exciting I've been about video games this year, and I'm loving it so far. What about you, George? How you been?
Similar, I mean, without ruining what you're hoping to play, so probably save people a few hours. I'm absolutely stoked. And by the time you hear this, good listener, I'll be knee deep on the Horizon Zero Dawn remaster.
You're going back?
Yeah, Forbidden West hit for me in a real great way. I played the original and then got into Zero West, and you know, it blew me away, the improvements and the way it played. And I know everyone else in the cool yard was playing Elden Ring, but Old Loser Boy over here was playing Forbidden West and loving it. The fact that everyone ran off and played Elden Tree made it feel like it was a bit more of a personal experience. I do like it when I get the wrong end of the stick in terms of gaming, because you end up with a more sort of rewarding personal experience. So when you do get bored or you have a break and you go on your phone, I was just seeing shots of Elden Ring and I was like, yeah, this is great because I'm in my little special place. I'm in Forbidden West. You aren't. So off you go. And I know millions of people are probably playing it, but when you don't see the buzz as much, it makes it feel special. Now, I love the graphics and everything they did with Forbidden West. For them to roll that back through into the first one. Now, I know we're all a bit sick of remasters and whatnot, but it's been long enough. And for £10, and considering they gave the game away for free during COVID,
it's not bad. It's not bad.
It's pretty good. And the effects and the differences look great. Although I was watching a video of the intro and it did look like Rost, your sort of adoptive father, had some work done. You know, all his wrinkles and lines had gone, and he just had this smooth, almost 360 like texture finish to his skin. And I was like, oh, that's a bit egregious. And then you label it as a remaster when he looked a little bit grittier in the original. But that's splitting hairs. Everything else.
Yeah, minor nitpick there.
Yeah, a massive improvement. So I'm not here to say, oh, it's awful. It's not. I was literally blown away by everything that I've seen. So I'm looking forward to just tearing into that. Now, what we've done here is we flipped the show upside down. So let's get it back on track as I ask you, and I heard you doing an imitation of this.
Oh yeah, and I have a terrible one.
No, I don't think you realised that through that mimic, artistry was discovered, and you actually tapped into my persona more than I think you give yourself credit for. So let me give them what I would now call the second place, what you've been playing, because you own the first place position. Triple S.
Okay.
Contractually, I'm obliged to ask you. Been playing? No.
Oh, I love it. You got the what is it? The guy the Family Guy who like creeps around on the youngest or the oldest son.
Hello there, son.
Yes, yeah. You kind of had that vibe to it. I love it.
I didn't know I'd made it pervy, but do you know what? If anyone was it was gonna be me, wasn't it?
I like that though. It has a little bit of flavor to it. What have I been playing, man? I've been had a
little bit of that P. Diddy flavor.
Yeah, it kind of did. It kind of had a little baby oil to it, but it's an interesting thing though, because I was thinking about this before we started recording though. I was complaining a lot about this year and what this year was, and how samey a lot of the games felt, and then ironically, the games that I'm most into are in the same ilk and genre of the games I was complaining about at the very beginning. Yeah, so I'm like, I'm really, like I've been playing Dragon Quest 3 HD,
Yeah,
the
how's that
HD
been
remake.
working out?
It's not been working out well, if I'm being honest. I think the game looks phenomenal. It has that, 2.5D Octopath Traveler look that people are raving about and love, and I love that
Hmm.
art style. It's
Yeah.
just I I made the taboo sin of playing that after playing Metaphor, and I think like Metaphor, even though they're different types of JRPGs, but then
Hmm.
like Dragon Quest has the cardinal sin of also starting off really slow. That first 3 hours, I think, are like old school. This is the tale of a kid who needs to get out of his village. He's now the chosen one. He basically goes off to save the day. He meets some friends along the
Mm.
way, and it's like it's an episode of a show you've seen 1,000 times, just done with a new skin. And I think like them starting off slow, especially with the tutorial section, doesn't do that game any favors. I think like if you played this game back in the day, I think you might have that nostalgia boost of saying like, "Oh, this is a lot better of a game that I had played growing up, and I want to revisit those memories." If you're like me, you're experiencing this for the first time, then you're like, well, I kind of have some other JRPGs that I want to play, and this, even though it looks like a modern game because of the 2.5D aesthetic, it feels, plays, and the storytelling, it feels like a 1998 game.
So this was Dragon Quest.
Yeah, this is Dragon Quest, but I'm obsessed with Metaphor though. That's been my JRPG right now that I've been
Give
like.
me the lowdown on that then, because like that's passed me by that one. So I would like to know a little bit more, if I may be so bold.
So a little history on me. I never really played that much of any Atlas game until Persona 5, and fell in love with Persona 5 around, was that 2017, late 20
Hmm.
or early 2018, around that time. Loved it. Played, I want to say 80 hours on my first playthrough, and just was salivating for more. Then, Persona 5 Royal came along. I devoured that as well, even though it's a lot of the same thing as the original Persona
Unbelievable.
5.
Did you take some slightly different routes when you played it
Oh
again,
yeah.
or good?
Yeah, for sure,
Okay.
for sure. I'm like different love interest. I mean, they added so many different like people to your party that you can actually explore a lot more of the story. There, I think like one of the party members that you get late in the original game, they expand upon his like story as well
That's
in
cool.
Royals. So yeah, there's a lot more meat on the bones of Royal. I think that's the definitive edition of the way to play that game. But then like,
Yeah.
so I spent another like at least minimum probably 60 to 80 hours in that. So I'm like overall,
Mm.
160 hours, probably at least a minimum of 150 hours in Persona 5. Went to Persona 3, didn't quite hit the same, but I enjoyed it. Like, I think it's hard for me to go from 5 to 3 and say, like, oh,
Even with the tweaks, it was always going to
yeah,
be a big ask, that, because they're split across. Let's say five. Best case scenario landed on. Well, they released it on PS3 to make sure that they fulfilled their promise. But we're comparing a late PS3 game, or you could more appropriately class it as a PS4 game,
yeah,
versus what really was pre-Persona 4, a very early-ish PS2 title. That's going to take some quite significant work to force in those quality of life improvements that we've now experienced almost 2 decades on from that game's release, I'd imagine.
and
Um,
even the storytelling. I think Persona 5 had a more mature way of telling, like, modern day stories of abuse and, like, of
have you played 4?
desperation. No,
That's
that's
the
the one I've
missing
never
link.
played.
That's
Yeah.
Pro Magnium Man 4 is for you. I think if you went to 4, it would click and you'd be like, oh, now this makes sense to me. Now I can see the progression, because to me, 4 and 5, they're almost back to back. They're almost kind of Rubber Soul Revolver. They're very similar in their kind of the gameplay, the
Yeah.
the screen transitions, and other bits and bobs, which I've noticed from the remake of Persona 3, that they've tried to incorporate that overview, and they've tried to, admittedly, it's been a long time since I've even looked at the original, but they went for that blue aesthetic. 4 is the yellow aesthetic, 5 is the
Hmm.
red. It almost looks to me like they're trying to bond these colours in a little bit more. So we kind of see the blue, we immediately think of 3. We see the yellow, immediately think of 4. We see red, and we immediately think of 5. It's been
And they
interesting to
each
see.
have a different also music aesthetic too, like different music
Yeah.
aesthetic and such like that, different like settings and such. So yeah, it's different than Pokemon to where like red, blue, and red, blue, and yellow are basically the same game, except swatched out your different starters. This is like a completely different setting, different cast, different vibe, different music aesthetic. Like you said,
Different
like
interface
oh yeah,
into the, for want of a better word, the dream world,
yeah.
right? Different every time, which I also think is cool.
So I think like this is metaphor to bring this back to your original questions. Like metaphor is what I wanted from more Persona 5, but in a like a medieval setting and twist to it, to where like
Hmm.
it feels like they've added a lot of more, I guess you could say, layers to combat. Like instead of you just having a Pokemon style battle against a Pokemon out in the wild, which is basically what Persona is. This is like you you everybody has weapons, and you don't have a Pokemon. You have weapons that you play with, and instead of you changing your persona, that you in the grand scheme of things that would basically change your move set, you change your weapon type. It's almost like you're not going to want to hear this. It's almost like Yakuza Like a Dragon meets Persona, but they have so many. I think
Oh,
it's
mate.
more. I think it's more streamlined than the job system in Yakuza Like a Dragon. In this, they
Oh,
call
it
it.
needs to be.
Oh yeah,
Because
in
while
this
I've not seen you, I had to go on another
tangent about that.
grind grindathon to get that game finished. And it
Oh, did you
was,
finish it though?
yeah, of course I did.
Yeah, yeah, I can
And
understand that.
I will just cut back to you shortly because I talked about this last week, and I wanted to say this to you. By the end, I just did not care.
It's too much.
It wore me down. Like, I try and do everything that I stumble across. I'm not actively
Mhm.
looking for everything in these games, but if I see something, I'll dedicate to it. My hour counter on that game was ridiculous when I'd finished. I looked at it and was like, "That's embarrassing, mate. You need a hobby." And by the end of it, I was just kind of clicking. I just lost. I don't think I bond with I've even forgot his name, Ichiban, as well. But I think the
Oh,
world is better realized. I
mhm.
felt it a bit like, yeah, I knew they might have to pop up the
Yeah.
cameos. And I did think, oh, crikey, just let these guys shine in one game of their own. You say you quite harshly dump in all the backstory, and that's what you tell me. And then guess what? You lied. It's all here, laid bare in front of me. Um, and it just was a stark reminder of like, oh, I wish I was playing as him.
I understand that. I'm also wondering if we're reaching an oversaturated point of Yakuza as a whole.
I think that's a fear because they are not short games, and if you play them and finish them, especially in the order that they've been re-released, and you're
Hmm.
catching up, and you kind of, it must take as long to finish a Yakuza now as it does to make one. I don't know what they've done in the studio, but they've streamlined it with the ability to spit a game out every other afternoon. I mean, I no doubt you've seen the Goro Majima pirate.
That's the pirate one, yeah, coming up. Yeah, it's
God, guys, this barrel is barely empty, but if you wring that wood out, you might get another pet's worth of water out of it. Fair play to them, but
I
they're
get it,
in
but
they're in
it,
danger of killing the franchise.
I think that's true. I think that's part of the reason why I also feel like Final Fantasy VII sales were soft and Final Fantasy 16 sales were a lot softer than Square anticipated, is because like you are beating the drum of your IPs to death by just like rapidly putting them out. They don't feel special. Like they don't feel
Absolutely not.
they don't feel special. Even 7, which is like the king of Final Fantasies evidently, didn't feel special because like for one, it's going to be a trilogy, so I mean that's a lot of homework for a lot of people to want to like commit to. And then 2, it's like you just had 16 come out. You constantly have this MMO that you're pushing as well, and there doesn't seem to be any midnight release build of like this feels like a main event game anymore.
Yeah,
It feels
I tell
like
you what they've done. I tell you what we've done as fans. I
Yeah,
don't lump myself into this, but this over-adulation of 7 to the point where nothing can compare with our teenage wet dream
I
means that
never
we've
played
had
7.
some really great Final Fantasies since that always get measured against a PlayStation 1 game as a yardstick. And I think,
I get
what the
that.
hell? And 15 came out and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then we started the whole schmoz of, we was this an admittance by them that they haven't done anything as good since 7, so they're just going to remake 7 and capitalize on the fan fury of it all? But to the detriment of a modern day kind of full on new game release, I think was a mistake. Final Fantasy 16 barely got its moment in the sun. It's a shame that it didn't hit for me as well as I thought it would do. I don't think I like the real time combat. And this is me, right? Who didn't
Yeah,
like
I get that.
Yakuza because
Mhm.
it was not what I'm used to, and didn't
In
like
turn
Final
based.
Fantasy because it's not what I'm used to. And the games
It's
are
real time
basically
combat.
just
Yeah.
flipped on each other, yeah. But the evolution of I mean, Final Fantasy 15 had real time in it, but behind the scenes, there were some dice rolling things going on. For me, the absolute peak of people are going to write and then complain about this comment, but for me, the peak of the Final Fantasy real time battle system, and it was maligned, although I love it, Final Fantasy 13. I thought they had that really good. And I think it was called the Chrysalis system as well, where it kind of unfolds and you skill up and level up. Was just great. It was a natural progression. It was great. Well, that's all gone in the bin. And I just wonder if I say this all the time, but Steve Jobs famously said if we'd asked people who used mobile phones at the time we launched the iPhone, what do you want to see? The iPhone would have just had really big buttons and a tiny little screen. Sometimes you just got to give people what's next. And I think the gaming industry can be a little guilty of listening to what we want, and therefore innovation doesn't come as thick and fast as we do if we just put some grown men in a room with a laptop and say, make me a game from your wildest fantasies. We don't get that anymore. Anyway,
Here's can I push back on that notion just a little bit? Because like
come at me. Come at me.
I don't think it's an at you thing. I think this is more like I think you're right on one half of the industry. I think like if you're from a AAA standpoint, I feel like you're right. I think that's 100%. Like a little bit more too much fan service, not enough innovation. Also a little bit too much bloat, too many IPs coming out, a bit like oversaturation. There's also
Yeah.
like a growing sentiment of like what is a premium game in 2024 if we're paying $70 or we're really getting a $70 premium item.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on there. And
There's a
on the
lot there.
other there's on the other side, I do think like the indie side is where we get our innovation games. It's just we're not supporting the indie market like we should because it's oversaturated shit too. Excuse my
Well, that's
language.
the problem. Every now and then
Yeah.
I pull on my indie boots and
Yeah.
a mask of you, basically, and I pretend to be the king of indies. But after wading through a couple of sort of cat owner simulators and Litterbox Emptier 5000 simulator and supermarket simulator and a load of other drivel, I've lost interest. It's
Yeah, you
like,
just want
oh,
to get back to
no.
your game.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to play a game, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. A digital storefront doesn't just mean you can dump a load of stuff in there and go, there's your games. I've noticed there's an element of curation creeping in on the PlayStation Store, which has probably been sort of forced upon them by the alignment of their streaming service. But there needs to be a hell of a lot more curation. Nintendo are really guilty of it. There is barely any on there, and you get all excited. You go on your Switch, and I know to you said that sounds like a man smashing two rocks together to try and start a
I
fire.
get it though. I get it.
But I go on there, here's my little indie machine. Let's have a little skit around on here. What's going on? I'm laid on the sofa. I want my next big indie game. No. No. They need a section that says indies, and they've curated them, and they've got like a indie seal of approval. Their gold seal means nothing because they'll stick it on anything. It just means the
Anything.
game's going to run. But
Yeah.
they've taken something that I used to view as a hallmark of quality and they've driven it into the ground this generation. There's some absolute tap with that gold label on it. Disgraceful.
So here's, I think, like I don't think we give them enough credit in the industry, so I'm gonna give this part of the industry credit. I think this is where Xbox actually excels with Game Pass and with like their storefront. I think it's the better out of the big three storefronts.
It is really good. My
Yeah,
only slight gripe with it is it can be a bit busy and a little bit confusing. I think we just need it super simple.
I think so.
And one of the things that disappoints me with their store is they've got some really great, admittedly, they're not new franchises, but you could, I think I've said this before on the show, but you could create an area of the store that's like, well, Games Pass, even the history of Gears of War, and it's got like
Hmm.
I don't know, a 10-minute documentary sandwiched in and around the games or on a page that you go to it's playing silently in the background while you look at the games underneath with some little data cards
It,
about when they were
yeah,
released, etc.
it needs to
And
be
then
Disney Plus to where have you been on Disney Plus where they have like the breakdowns for each section? Like you can go to
yeah,
the Marvel section, everything's there.
that would be that would be the dream. Although what
Hmm.
I think about video game companies is that they could do that so much slicker. The media could be
Oh yeah,
existing almost simultaneously. Xbox, as an example, they've got their cloud streaming nailed on in terms of the ability to quickly try this. Yeah, the quality is, I'm not here to argue about who's got the better quality. It's really
no, for
irrelevant.
sure not.
But
Hmm.
they could have the game running and then you could just go straight into the level. It wouldn't even be difficult for them to manifest that on the page. Um, or like, oh, here's a scene to remember from Gears of War 2. And you look at the scene, and instead of just watching it unfold, you can click a button and you can immediately be playing the scene. I know PlayStation put there were some patents going on not that long ago where they were kind of they were trying to lock away that functionality and get a patent for it, which I thought was pretty cool. But a patent's one thing; utilizing the technology in a fruitful way, that's something else. But yeah,
Yeah, that seems
I
like it's. I think their technology is there. That's something you save to make people actually want to buy a new console, though.
wow. Okay, well,
I'm just saying. I'm like the greed in
yeah,
me, the
you
marketing
know,
person in me. That
I
I completely think that's what they're doing there.
I agree. It's um, it's a shame that they would do that. It'd be nice to see that functionality make its way into the store cross-platform, like right now. But yeah, you're right. Why give something away for free when you can make someone pay for it? I suppose. I mean, that's capitalism, right? We wouldn't be here without it. So fair play to
Especially
it.
when people are already questioning should you get a PS5 Pro at the moment. Like, what is the new Xbox going to offer that the new Xbox can't do? Like you have to make you have to make it feature rich at that point.
I'm actually starting to err on the side of throwing caution to the wind and grabbing myself a pro.
I
Maybe
knew
not.
you would. I knew you would. Anybody who's gonna buy a Portal is gonna buy the PSVR 2. It's gonna buy the Pro. You're they got you, man. They know who their audience is.
The thing is, right? I was like, nah. The Portal I've come round on, right? That actually was well executed in the end, and it's fulfilled a lot of my requirements in terms of broadening my ability to game. Uh, the PS5 Pro would just be it would be a very, very self-indulgent thing to do. It's $700, right? And I have mine horizontal, so I've got no aspirations of getting the vertical stand, but I'd have aspirations of getting a disk drive, right? So that's in the bin. I did read today that although they say that everything was interchangeable with the Pro from the Slim, hmm, people have been trying to fit Slim faceplates to the Pro. They don't fit.
Nah, man, they gotta sell you. They gotta sell you the new faceplates and everything
Sell
like
you the
that.
Pro plates, and I
Uh-huh.
was like, "Oh, this needs to. They need to simmer down now." I think PlayStation have risen to the point of being, the bigger boys Nintendo, and they are experimenting and successfully getting away with raising up the RRPs. to build like a premium brand, which is obviously from a marketing point of view a good direction to take it in. When you've hit the ceiling, what else can you do to extrapolate revenue? Well, you've got to present yourself as a premium product.
You know whose fault this really is? It's like there's a lot of people's faults, but like Xbox could have prevented this. Like if there's competition, like actual stiff competition, you don't make these kind of like egregious things. Like you only do that from a power of strength.
If Xbox had come out the gates,
this is PS3 all over again. You know, like this is them kind of having their hubris about them and such like that before Xbox 360 really just kind of cleaned the clock that generation, at least from the start of that generation, you know?
And I wonder if that's what's due next. You know, the PS6 is going to, you know, maybe because we do know that Xbox want to get out the gates early. We know that for a fact.
Yeah, history is repeating itself a little bit. Yeah.
A little bit. But, you know, that means they kind of got away with their second version of the PS3 and the PS5. And you're like, oh, yeah. Lightning doesn't strike twice, guys, because they came out of that with a fresh face and a new attitude, and that was great. And that has done them a world of good. I actually think they're probably at their worst in the PS2 era, which the PS4 kind of duplicated, but they didn't quite lose themselves like they did with the PS3. And the PS5, I was a little bit nervous. I was like, oh, it's starting to smell a little bit like PS3 all over again. I don't have to wait till the end for some good games. We're waiting to the end for good games, right?
It is kind of history repeating itself. But I kind of like that, though, because I'm like, if Xbox, and I know we probably say this every year, if they are able to hit on the litany of games that they've advertised from the brilliant Xbox showcase, what was that, earlier this year, and then, you know, like part of last year, I'm like, you can have that 360X feeling. You're at the gate first at this point. I'm like, if you come out with some games, that's all people really want. They don't really, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's hard for me to come to terms with it, but like, people don't necessarily care about having the biggest, baddest console. They want software more than they actually want hardware nowadays. And
it's good to have like that double win. If you get lucky enough to be able to execute the double win, I mean, you're laughing. If you can't, then you need some games, right?
That's what Nintendo's living on. No one in the history of like who has two brain cells thinks Nintendo's hardware is premium. Like that's where they're not priced as a premium item or anything like that, but they love the software.
It's premium. I'm contractually obliged to tell you it's premium.
At this point, it's like you could pick up 2 generations of phones ago, and you know you're on top of being better than the Switch. But like it's
they wring performance out of that machine though. They really
like have though. They are
honestly, someone is.
They are geniuses, but no, it's like I really to give them a lot of credit though, like. They have really pushed their software to that next level of like, if you look at like what they're actually doing, if you look at the indie landscape, they're not doing anything too dissimilar from what a lot of indie games are doing. They're just doing it. They're super indie at this point. And like,
yeah, I agree with that. Although I do feel like they are kicking the wheels out of the kind of game engines that they created for the Switch era. Some of them kind of have roots in the Wii U era. Okay. And they've milked that dry. They have milked this era completely dry. And yeah, I mean, they've got a game coming out in the
Mario Brothership? Or Mario
in the release window of this show, they will have a new game out, Mario Brothership or Mario Luigi Brothership.
Did you play the original, by the way? Because I never played the Mario Luigi games and Luigi games.
This one feels to me like I haven't deep dived on it because it's just not really for me, but it feels to me like a quick rehash of the Mario RPG engine. I could be wrong, but I'm sure I saw turn-based mentioned on the website I went to get the blurb for the show notes. So
let me before we go back to anything, let me give you the quick pitch on why I think you especially since you like Persona would like Metaphor.
Yeah, because this all that amble that we did there, considering this is a short show, Once we get together, we're dangerous.
Yeah,
Give
we
me
really are.
give me the takeaway highlights. I can't even say it.
A metaphor refantasia, like
Metaphor Fantasia
it
is a Georgie
is.
game.
Okay, so if you liked Persona 5 and this is all the like streamlinedness of Persona 5, it still has the persona-ness of you having to manage your time, manage your days, and you
Does
have
it
a
have the
team of.
slick transitions?
Oh my goodness. I think it's almost near, probably a little slicker than Persona 5's, but I I think it is, but I think that's a high bar. I
Yeah,
think
but
you
they're
also
really, for me, those transitions are what really
so
makes
good.
those. Yeah.
So good. And here's one of the cool parts that I'm enjoying about like or Metaphor right now is like you can put on different costumes from different era of Atlas games and
Mm.
say all your people, all my people, like I Persona 5 is my favorite the lineup. So I have all my people dressed in like Persona 5 school uniforms. And I
I love it.
and yeah, so like if you do that, all of like after you beat like one person out in the wild or something like that, like it transforms your end scene where it gives you the stats and like this is how much money you got, this is how much experience you got, and all that kind of stuff. It changed to the Persona 5 one to where like it's the same as the Persona 5 where they're all walking
Ooh.
and it's in the red font and the red background now.
I
And
don't.
you
Tell
can
me about the music.
oh, the music is more orchestral. Like this is their I think oh, excuse me for a second.
I don't know what's going on on Seb's side of the cult, but it looks like he's having technical issues. No, he's
So,
back with
j-
us.
all right.
He
So,
had to inject biscuit.
yeah, for sure. So, like to bring it back though, yeah, the music
Biscuit's
is more.
allergic to Longhorn.
Yeah, yeah. It's, Biscuit's only allowed when Longhorn's not here for the for the day and such. But but no, like the music's orchestral. It feels like how I told you they have a different vibe. I think like Persona 5 was the jazz soundtrack to where they leaned hard into lo-fi and jazz music.
Yeah,
Persona
lo-fi
4
for
had its own.
sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
So I'm like, this one is more like the orchestral Lord of the Rings meets kind of like that soft rock kind of aesthetic there. And
nice.
it really flows well with the medieval weapons and all that they're going for. I
Mm.
also will say like I think I here in America we are in a political time in our country to where like it's election season, and
Hmm.
having a game that is about election and like you electing a leader as far as like your whole country, a new country is going. It's meta in a way that it feels like they plan this, but it's also like there's so many different factions that have like ideological differences, and those are kind of like a little meta as well of like, oh, this could be this party, this could be that party. This is like a party rooted with like heavy ideologies from the church and such like that. So I'm like, I feel like this is their smartest that they've been in writing something that feels more modern and also more thought provoking.
Purposeful or just good timing?
I don't know because I'm like, it feels like this is good. It could be a happy coincidence that this is maybe like it's happening right now. But I also think like you put it out right before election time in America. Like election day is coming, and this was like a couple of weeks before that. So I do think there is a little bit of intention behind that. But like I do think like the fact that you're not constantly having to like fuse personas or like catch a persona. Instead, you're working on like each weapon type is tied to a person out there that you are having a bond with. In the same way,
Mm.
like you had a bond with Ryuji and all the other people in the older games, and that in turn made you like better with a certain type of persona. This makes you better with a certain type of weapon style, and that weapon
Mm.
style gives you like maybe then you're like I got better with this guy now. I can like raise his ninja class up, and in turn like Also, like in Persona, like Ryuji and all those other people, they were locked to their own like personas. Like
Yeah.
they were locked to that class. You couldn't do anything. This one, if you unlock that class out there in the wild, you can mix and match your team based on whatever like weapon style you think they'd be best with.
That's a bit different, isn't it? That's
Oh, and it gets better. Like there's formations now. So like you can still have 4 people to a row, but one of the cool parts about it is like you can say like I want 2 people in the front, 2 people in the back. The 2 people in the front will take more damage, but they also dish out more physical damage or dish out more damage, period.
so it's a bit like Darkest Dungeon where you can arrange your
Yeah,
ranged people in the rear.
that's exactly what it is. So I'm like in the back though, you can also like there are special classes that take advantage of being a back formation class. And you can either
Mm.
raise like people's stats up. You can also like I have this guy on a crossbow. He's very good at crossbowing, but he's also good at magic. So I can take advantage of having him dual
So
wield
he's like
magic
Joe
and a
Rogan.
crossbow. Yeah, it really is like Joe Rogan shooting the Cybertruck sort of thing. But yeah, it's like it is more thought provoking because I feel like playing Persona 3 made Persona 5. I went back and thought, okay, well, like that's a fun game, but I can kind of see like how this would get old after 3 installments. This freshens all that up because now you're playing with, oh, I got a spear guy, I got a samurai guy, I got a healer, and I got a crossbow person.
Mm.
But this boss coming up, he's weak to piercing and pierce damage and electrical damage. I can change my whole people's classes to reflect on how better like to pursue that boss. And also like
You
Persona
could
5.
do that, or you could just walk backwards through the game and grind through every enemy and then grind through every enemy on the way back and beat him in your standard class. I mean, you could do that.
You could do that, but I mean like this game also like it's also a lot more anti-grind friendly in the way that like in Persona 5 and Persona 3, they encourage you to go and grind through like I can't remember what the worlds are called, the other dimensions where all the like monsters and everything like that
The
is.
dungeons, for sake of
The
argument.
Yeah, for sure. Like you can do the dungeons and all that kind of stuff. And this one they give you XP based items that will allow you to build up not necessarily your levels, but it'll allow you to build up your classes. You could be under leveled, but if your classes are high enough, you can actually take down people much higher levels than you.
Mm,
And also like
interesting.
yeah, and I think like one of the cool parts about like some of the thoughts and differences and like the way Atlas has like thought about progression since like Persona 5 especially is the fact that like you can go out and there's some people you can buy like informant sheets from. These are like dedicated informant guys. You can say, "Hey, I want all the weaknesses of this upcoming dungeon or this optional dungeons." And you can just buy that from that person. And then so instead of you playing like trial and error of going in of each dungeon trying to figure out everybody's weakness, you already know that going in. And
That's that's a quality of life improvement. Like, yeah, maybe in the past going in the dungeon and learning what was in there, or it normally often linked around your latest skill, right?
mhm,
But knowing that ahead of time just is a bit more respectful of the one commodity that costs more than money in this day and age, which is time.
yeah, yeah, and they have so many quality of life improvements, and then like, so like in the old Persona games, you're always building up like crazy attributes for your own personal character, like his integrity, his courage, and all that kind of stuff. That's still in this game, but they limit it to just 5, and those 5 can also be done in your home base that moves around from like place to place in the country. So it's like
Mm,
and also like they think about, okay, so instead of giving you 5 semesters or 3 semesters where we're really kind of like pushing out content of like, oh, we're going to give you quizzes and such like that might not really matter in the grand scheme of things. It's just ways to kind of like fluff out the game and like say like, oh, this will improve your wisdom. They give you like thought provoking ways of saying like, hey, we're going to do that similar in your home base, but it's not going to kill your days. And there's so many other quality of life things like different people unlock different certain things to where like instead and they have like this future sight that you get early on in the game that'll tell you like which person you want to build your bonds with because it'll give you certain boosts in the future. Like there's this girl Maria, for instance. I from the very get go, they tell you early on in the game, like with your future sight, you can see that if you build a relationship with this girl Maria, she gives you double XP as you keep going on. So even more incentive of you like I can get a bond with Maria and it and even while I feel like I might want to grind out like in a dungeon for a second, because have a bond with her, it gives me double XP and double XP and double XP
Oh
just
wow!
because I have a bond with that girl, and so
A
on
bit
and
like
so
me
forth.
drinking a Boss coffee.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm like, it is, it is very much one of those things to where I'm like, I think like they thought about so many quality of life
Is
improvements
this
like
a
that.
$70 game or is it like a $50 game?
It's a $70 game
Ouch.
if you have if you have the big two. If you have like Steam, I think it's 59.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
so
just
that's
to
basically it. Sorry
well,
to
let me
ramble
put a
on.
pin in it. No, you're all good. I wanted to know about this. It's a game that's piqued my interest. I haven't actually done any learning on. I'm currently obsessed with the Beatles, so my neurodivergency, undiagnosed, diagnosed by Instagram, like most people.
It might
Uh,
it's with Astrobot right now for my like front runners for game of the year.
it's time I talked about Astrobot.
Oh, you dove in?
Yeah, it's. I don't say these things to go against the grain on purpose, but it's just more of the same. And it's fun and it's friendly and it's nice and it's well executed. But a lot of these enemies I've seen before, a lot of the bosses I've seen before. The gameplay's innovative, yeah, don't get me wrong, and it's a friendly twist on what's gone before. And maybe I'm expecting too much from it, but I definitely wouldn't have it. Well, in lieu of anything else appearing, okay, I wouldn't have put it as my game of the year so far. I don't think I would have. Although that renders my opinion, not that my opinion is valid or not valid in this world, right? Because it's my opinion. But
Yeah, I get what you mean.
that would technically put Star Wars Outlaws above Astrobot in my year's ranking. And I know,
Wow.
wait, and I know as I'm saying that, that's going to get me probably banned from the internet as a heretic. I just I'm just not in for the hype on Astrobot. I'm not here to say I'm a bit like the reverse of Star Wars Outlaws. I'm not here to say it's a bad game, right? I'm not.
Hmm.
It's a 10 out of 10 in everybody's appreciation of it. It absolutely is. And I can see why and I can understand the critical response from yourself and others as to why it's got this big score to it. I can also see why that throws it in the game of the year bucket, right, for consideration, and probably
Hmm.
is going to take home a gong or three. He's probably going to clean up at the Ponces this year. That's our award ceremony. And if anyone wants to know where Pasta is, he's out making America great again on the campaign trail in El Paso. That's all I've got to say. But when he's on the campaign trail, we can record in our normal clothes. We don't need the cult smock. Everything's a lot more relaxed here. You know, we
Yeah,
break
for
out the
sure.
twister and do all that sort of stuff. But anyway, Astrobot, it's good.
Are you a platformer guy? Because I'm genuinely not usually typically like a
Mm,
platformer guy.
generally, no. The last one that I played 3D was
Hmm.
probably Mario Odyssey. Played that last year, didn't I? I got to a bit late. And I kind of
You liked it,
tailed
but
off.
didn't love it, did you?
I liked it, but very much towards the end, I was like, I'm a bit done with this, so please end now. Um, I beg of
I
you
get
to
that.
be the last boss. Please don't mess me about now. Be the end of this game. And that's how I
Were you
was
the
with
same on
Yakuza.
Galaxy as well? Like Mario Galaxy games?
Uh, it was a different time. Um, and maybe a little bit more. I think Odyssey was slightly more respectful of your time. Um, and it was fun. But by the end, I wanted to throw Cappy in a bin, not wear him for the next 10 years. And I hope that they rest Cappy because if Mario Odyssey 2 is what we're getting on Nintendo Switch 2, yeah, that's a mistake. But anyway, back to Astrobot. Music's great. DualSense is great. The platform's fun. I never die because I think, oh, this game's broken. I die because I've overreached myself in terms of the jumps or my abilities to do the timing. Um, it's a good game. If you're out there thinking, do I get it or do I not? Yeah, get it. I'm just trying to reframe this in the game of the year conversation, and I'm struggling to. I'd give it a solid 8, right? But 10 out of 10? There's no better game ever. Nah, absolutely not. No.
No, I'm right there with you. I don't think 10 out of 10. I don't
I've
think there's
seen
been
a
a 10 out
lot.
of
I've
10
seen
this
so
year.
many 10 out of 10s banded around for Astrobot. It's made me lose faith a little bit in critical gaming reviews, if I'm honest with you. It's made me kind of go,
I think that's a separate conversation. I think that's one worth having, but like, I do think like there has been a little bit more lax, I would say is the best word for it. Like, I think like growing up, 10 out of 10s were rare and they also like meant something.
they meant a lot.
To
Yeah.
that point, I feel like nines meant a whole lot too, because like
They were hallowed ground, mate. Absolutely.
yeah, for sure. And I feel like right now, it's almost like this new generation is more, how do I put this? Like they're more compassionate, almost like they're the new generation. They're almost more compassionate. They see like growing up, we saw a game as a game. Like now, there's more like nuances of saying like, oh, this is something people made. It's more like they see it as art. So like
Yeah.
this new generation of reviewers, I think reviews everything almost a notch too high. Like
As
I
not
think
to
like
offend anybody.
yeah, yeah,
I'm
as
inclined
not,
to agree with you with that. But that means Star Wars Outlaws critical reception metered down to a Metacritic of about 5 out of 10.
I'm okay with that personally, but no, all jokes aside, I
I'm
do
getting the
get
DLC for that. Deadpan.
God.
Deadpan. This is a serious episode, so I don't need to. The script doesn't need to say play it deadpan? Okay, I mean it.
Okay.
Like wow. Star Wars
So
Outlaws with a 5. Such
no,
a good game, and the DLC is going to make up for everything. It's going to be great.
I wholly believe it. I wholly believe it because this is Ubisoft we're talking about here, you know. But no,
Although they
it's
keep
like
refining the stealth, and they just need to leave it alone. There's plenty of other bugs in that game that they've completely ignored because someone moaned about the stealth in the first level. My good God.
it has way more cardinal sins than just a stealth.
There's
But
so much more. And the
way
stealth,
more.
if the way I ended up playing it was I just literally roughshod my way through everything and everybody using some of the attributes and skills you get later in the game. Like if you bum rush someone and take them down with melee, you get a top up of your health bar, which means I basically ran through a hail of laser fire, most of which was hitting me, punched matey 3 times with a punch combo button, and I was full health again. So I just ran 200 yards to the next guy and punched him in the face. Full health. Doesn't even matter if you're down to 1 pixel. As soon as he drops, you get your health back.
You're playing
And
this like a PS3 game, like double A game. Like if you remember, like what was it? This what was the
Infamous, you were going to say? Is that the one you were going to?
I was gonna say not Infamous, but what was the almost like the symbiote game back in the day where you were just running around killing people? It's
Yeah, it is Infamous.
is it Infamous?
I don't think
Because
you class that as
Infamous
a
is like
symbiote, I
the
suppose.
PS. No. This one is the one where like you actually were. It was a PS3, Xbox 360 era game. You were actually like had a sequel. You were playing as almost like a symbiote Venom like character, and you would go around basically absorbing other people who had very much similar symbiote abilities.
Oh, wow. Well,
Anyways, you're going around like the Hulk game back in the day where you're just beating people down.
yeah, and that's how I played it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've gone way off track here.
Yeah,
I
for sure.
I thought it was time for me to mention Astrobot. I haven't done it on the show to this point, and I thought it would be rude not to. And I know everyone's going to be writing in saying, George, you know what you're talking about? It's the best game ever made. Are you just saying it to have a different opinion to everybody? I'm not. I am not.
I get it.
I loved Playroom. I love the VR version. And I'm not saying I don't love this. I just kind of wanted more. If you've been on every Astrobot train, going all the way back to the PS4 camera, you, I kind of wanted I just wanted a bit more from the little guy. That's all. That's all.
I understand.
Whether
I think this is more of the same in a lot of ways. Yeah. So, but
Yeah,
it's
and I
like
haven't seen one review kind of go, oh, saw that boss in the VR Worlds or the VR Packing demo game, or, oh, hang on a minute, we saw that technique in here, and it's all presented as new, and I'm a bit like, oh, nah, don't present it as new. I've done this before. Like I say, it's a personal gripe, and maybe I've spent too long on the Astrobot train and therefore needed to get off. It's something I'm
Prototype was the
grinding.
game I was referring to, by the way. The series I was
Prototype,
referring
yeah,
to.
absolutely. Anyway, the reason I actually wanted to tell you about a game I have been playing and loosely enjoying is a game called Frostpunk. Now, it came out years ago, right? But I stumbled across it on the old Sony Games Pass, whatever that's called, Premium, PS Premium, is it? Something
Yeah.
like that. Every game streaming service from now on in will be known as the XYZ Game Pass. You get there first, you get the name. And I genuinely think you would find some enjoyment from Frostpunk.
Are you playing the first one or the second one?
Number one.
Okay, gotcha.
And I like the amalgamation of like Anno and something like Darkest Dungeon, in the frame up of how it plays and how it looks. And you get these little cues where it's like, oh, hang on, there's a problem with an individual in the city, and you click on it, and it normally presents you a morality choice, which I found quite interesting, and I found quite a challenging way to play when you're right up against it, and someone's like, "We need a hospital," and you're thinking, "Yeah, but you also need coal, and you're all going to get a lot more ill if I don't heat this place." So the choices that you get are actually quite tough. I've not had that much longevity from a city yet, and that's been quite frustrating because I'm doing every time I've learned a bit more. I'm like, right, let's get the coal going on, let's get the food going on, no complaints. And then there's complaints, and you're like, my God, people, you do not know how good you've got it.
So this is a city skyline, like city builder simulator that actually has like real stakes.
It's very niche in the fact that there's nothing else like it because they've kind of created this lore of this frozen world and these heaters and the range of these heaters where you can have habitable zones and non sort of habitable zones, and how that affects their kind of despair or their hope, which you have to keep either up and the other one down. See, I don't need to explain to you which is which. And you get presented these kind of morality choices of like, oh, someone's died because you've looked after us so badly. And then it says, do you want to open the book of laws and force people to bury their dead at this cemetery? Or do you want to just leave it up to them? And it's like, oh, crikey, what do I do? Normally with the corpses, I build a cemetery, but one I've been presented several times, and I mentioned it last week, but I think you'll find this interesting, is someone lost or got wounded doing a job in the mine or whatever, and you bring them out, and the doctor presents to you one of these morality choices where it says, right, the guy, we need to save this guy's life. He's saying we can't take his leg. I'm telling you, if we don't take his leg, the guy will die. So I thought, well, I don't want to go down the route of forcing people to have because Frostpunk can go dark at the click of a switch, right? Because 1 minute you're struggling for labour, then they present you a morality choice of, oh, I tell you what, why don't we just make all children work? It's like, oh, crikey, guys, simmer down.
This is giving me Cult of the Lamb flashbacks right now.
It's a very edgy version of Cult of the Lamb, but they're the sort of choices that you presented. Anyway, I said to this guy, like, right, I'm not forcing medical procedures on someone. If he don't want his leg amputating, it's on him. Anyway, 5 minutes of game time later, pops up morality choice. Oh, by the way, that guy died. And I can't remember what the choice was. Well, that's on him, or we ought to do something about it so it gives you a chance to revisit. But I'm like, nah, if he didn't want his leg chopping off and he died, he knew the consequences, he's passed away. Here's what it is. If he'd asked us to fix his leg, we'd have done it immediately. It's on him. So I find it quite interesting. It's particularly tough, especially in this sort of early phase, because grinding through the book of laws is almost like you trill ski.
You're playing on PS5, I imagine.
Skill tree, yeah, PS5 on a backwards compatible mode on the PS4 original, and I'm sure Frostpunk probably came out in like 2015 or something daft, maybe
Yeah, it says
2016.
yeah. The Steam page says 2016. Steam has they have a pretty good sell for it, 449 right now. That's not bad at all.
Honestly, mate, if you've never played it, you're slightly intrigued for 449, I'd say definitely pick it up. It plays real time, but it has like Civ elements to it where you're kind of picking things
Love
slow
me some
time.
Civ.
And the game day night cycle, when you're playing it without any fast forward on, it just feels right. Enough time to make a choice, but not enough time to kind of drag the game on, which I actually think is fresh and nice in one of these. It's a halfway house between Anno and Civ, I would say, but without the historical elements in it, it is complete fantasy. And so far, I haven't come into any kind of
That's good though.
combat situations. Yeah, I think you'll. If anyone's listening now, they're not sure, and it's available on Games Pass. I know it's definitely on Premium. I don't know if it ever got a Switch release, but if it's cheap enough, you should pick it up. It's one of those games that you can just do half hour on and feel like you've achieved something. That's enough of that. I believe it's time for some news, Seb. Have you got your news pants on, your big boy pull-ups, or not?
I do not have my pull-ups on, but I will very much love to hear a lot about the news.
Okay, well, we scoured the very darkest region of the internet to bring you the latest stories. First up, let's face the music and dance. News I never thought was ever going to come, and partially because no one ever asked for this, but Nintendo's launched a dedicated mobile app.
Is this the alarm?
Cool. No, this is better than that, mate. This is Nintendo Music for the Switch Online members, allowing users to stream and download a variety of music tracks from the firm's wide range of franchises. It's available now on iOS and Android. I checked because I couldn't quite believe it is there. The app contains music from new releases along with retro classics from Nintendo's library, and also includes the ability to hide certain tracks that may contain game spoilers, as well as extend or loop tracks so you can keep listening for longer. Oh, is Donkey Kong on the SNES with the underwater world on? Oh my goodness gracious me. Mumsy, Pasta, down, he's out. I'll download the app. You'll be able to
Why
create
is this a thing? I'm like, you can just listen to it on YouTube or something.
They've seen an option to give us more bang for our bucks. They've spent our big Switch Online bucks on creating an app to store their music on. Fair play to them. Maybe they're hoping it's going to stem piracy. Who knows with them anymore? You can make playlists, blah, 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 blah. More music will, of course, be added in the future, but franchises highlighted in the debut trailer include the likes of Splatoon. No one will be listening to that. Zelda, some might listen to that. Metroid, yeah. Mario, yeah. Bottom. Pokemon, probably. Donkey Kong, yeah, so I'd imagine. Star Fox, Fire Emblem, and more. Essentially, then it sounds like Nintendo's take on Spotify, which is pretty awesome for Switch Online members. At the moment, we've been able to verify its availability in North America, the UK, Europe, and Japan. It's available to download via the Google Play Store and the Apple iOS App Store. Before I ask your opinion on that, Seb, it's reminded me there, talking about Europe and Japan and all that I must say, Sweden, I see you downloading episodes like you're doing. I appreciate you as well. And all the folks in Malaysia, you heard the call. You picked up the baton and you've ran with it. Welcome to the UCP family. We see you and we appreciate you and thank you for listening. Seb, let's switch it up and get all newsy on its ass. What do you make of this pile of drivel, really?
Did you hear it?
What was that? Biscuit doing a little
Nah, I tried to do the little switch snap. Like,
oh, okay.
okay.
Fine.
Yeah,
Is that the sound of a man who's into this or a sound of a man who's not into this?
Nah, I'm not into this at all. I'm like, I feel like you don't make YouTube when YouTube already exists. You know, like
I brought this here though because I want to understand, because these things aren't cheap. So someone somewhere said we need a Nintendo Music app. What drove that decision? I would love to know.
Weird Nintendo decisions. That's That's basically the mantra they live by. It's why, even though the Switch 2 isn't, it should be a slam dunk. It should just be the same thing over again, just higher, better.
I mean, have they gone on YouTube and seen? Obviously, because this all now makes sense, reframed around some news that we had a while ago. If you recall it, I think it was an episode you and I did where Ninty were serving notices on people for doing, and it's always a
Covers and all that.
sign. Yeah, people were doing covers of their music on YouTube, and then they were getting copyright struck, and the video had to come down because they had claimed the video and told people not to create music anymore.
Just be
And
kind to
now,
people. I'm like, what does it
now we
hurt?
know why.
I'm like, what does it hurt though? I mean, one thing, what does it hurt?
It
Like,
doesn't hurt. All the people with Nintendo Switch Online, they're the people, more than likely, hardcore members that are already listening to this music on YouTube. You're
hey
going to
man,
get ad revenue from that Nintendo. So why are you now making this app to give them it here? What, you don't want them on YouTube looking at videos about your games? Or what? Because your ecosystem is diverse.
Nintendo
And you
also
get,
has their own channel on YouTube. Just put it on your own channel.
maybe this was a better way of paying service to it. I just don't really get, I can normally see some form of logic. But seeing as this is a free app, if you've got and only available for free, technically, so it's not free, if you've got Switch Online.
Who wants to pay more though? Like
Well, let's
that's the
talk about the arrow of wedge of people that have Nintendo Online and will be that interested that they're going to go onto their app store and download this music thing.
no. Just put it on Spotify. Put it on YouTube. Put it on like you have a plethora of music options that people are already adapted to. You know how much harder it is to get like people into new technology on their phones. Like
I'll be
go.
honest, based on their success of their apps, Mario Run, Animal Crossing,
But
Mario
that's
Kart.
games though. You know.
Yeah, but they didn't even hit.
Yeah.
How
No.
the hell is this going to hit?
It's not. It is not. Just go like in business, you go where people are. You don't necessarily create an oasis where people are already there. It's why live service games aren't thriving right now. Because like people already have live service games. Look, you'd be better off making mini modes in Fortnite than you would trying to make another Fortnite.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. Well, I'll tell you what
Yes.
then. Let's park that burning Nintendo dumpster there. No doubt that'll be the most downloaded app for November, and I shall come in wearing a face mask of Shigeru Miyamoto. What's the
I don't have the email, so I don't know what the next story is, by the way.
Oh, okay, I'll do it too. Marvel's Wolverine has lost its original. No, hang on, rewind. I paid money here for the headline. Slash and burn.
Slash and burn.
Marvel's
that.
Wolverine has lost its original creative director Brian Horton to Xbox's upcoming Perfect Dark title. This is not the staff movement I expected, I'll be honest with you. A GameFile report was revealed, as confirmed by both Sony and Microsoft representatives. Horton made the switch in the summer, and Marcus Smith has taken his place, who served in directorial roles at Insomniac Games on Marvel's Spider-Man entries and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. As for why Horton moved from Insomniac Games, two sources speaking directly to the outlet claimed it was due to creative decisions around the game. Sony declined to comment on this claim, however, only confirming Smith's new position. In addition, Mike Daly is the new game director for Marvel's Wolverine. Speaking to GameFile, an Xbox rep said Horton will hold the same creative director role on Perfect Dark, allowing him to bring his wealth of experience to the upcoming reboot of the classic Secret Agent series, first revealed almost 4 years ago. Perfect Dark reappeared with a gameplay presentation earlier this year and did look all the better for showing us something. Marvel's Wolverine, meanwhile, was announced roughly 9 months later in the PlayStation Showcase of 2021, and we haven't seen a dicky bird since, except in leaked gameplay via a hack of internal Insomniac documents. The developers said it'll share more when the time is right. What do you make of that Wolverine situation, me owed fruit?
What's the word you said in there? Because I would love that. I would love you to say that again. Dicky Dickens. What was that? They haven't shared Dicky something since.
Dickens. They haven't shared. Was that your Dickens?
Nah, it was like Dicky Picky or something.
I don't
You were
even
reading the
know.
story, and I was like, it was something European, and I was like, I love that. I want to hear that again. But anyways,
I
um,
forget what I said, mate. To be honest, I have a script, but I did add some words into it
I
just to
love it.
freshen it up a little bit on the fly. And I thought, yeah, but now I've forgotten what you said. A dicky bird? Was it a dicky
Dicky
bird?
Bird, yeah, it was Dicky Bird. I was like, what is a Dicky Bird? I love that.
Dicky bird's just a little. I don't even know what a dicky bird is. It's just something that we say when you've heard nothing about it. I've not even heard a dicky bird out of them.
I haven't heard a Dicky Bird out of it. I love that. So I love that. That's so funny.
It's only in these moments, day to day. I speak to people who have probably a limited grasp of English, and I think
mhm.
that I turn up with some very bizarre words. And now you've zoned me in on Dicky Bird. It probably makes me realise that for half of the time I'm talking, they're probably looking at me going, "What the hell is this dude talking about?"
I love it. I love it. Don't ever change.
What is
Don't
a
ever
Dicky
change.
Bird?
What
I
is
don't
a Dicky
even know.
Bird?
I don't know. I don't
I
know. Write in if you know.
Yeah, let us know in the corrections or write in. But I don't think this is very much of a story. I think Wolverine's cooking, and like it's not. It wasn't in the list of canceled games that they canceled, like the Spider-Man multiplayer. I'm like,
Yeah.
let the game cook. Then at this point, I think like
Yeah, I agree. It's coming. Let it cook.
yeah,
I just found it strange that someone would exit there over a creative decision and find themselves at the initiative. Is it that's making Perfect Dark, or what do
yeah,
they
it's the
call
initiative.
themselves?
Yeah,
Right? Yeah. Considering they've had creative difference issues that's caused Perfect Dark to be mired in its own up to its own axles in mud, it kind of sounds like frying pan to fire. I don't know.
it's one of those things to where I'm like, I think this was just a way that someone said I wanted to move. I want to move from one company to another, and let me just come up with an excuse for it. It could have been creative differences, but it could have just been like, hey, I'm getting tired. I want to move to a new company. They're paying more.
I
Let me
don't see
come up with
why
an
that's
excuse.
such an egregious thing to say in this day and age. Listen, we've
No,
come to the end of the road together. I want to move in this direction with my career. The game's cool, right? I haven't got any creative issues. I just want to leave. I want to move.
no, it's like I don't get it either. But I'm like, it is one of those things to where I'm like, I don't think it's a story that Marvel Spider-Man is like, especially after the leak, going through some development, where they really have to hone in and decide what this game is going to be, take in some of the criticisms of all that, and then go from there. I also don't think it's like a big story that a guy left and wanted to work for another company because like creative decisions right now. It'd be different, I think, if Insomniac was a hellhole right now, like a Dicky
Well,
Bird.
that's
But
Insomniac Games isn't a company, from what I have researched or seen, that is one of those classic toxic businesses that exists in the industry.
no, they're not. They're not Ubisoft right now that has like
They're
all
good
their employees.
guys.
Yeah,
Uh,
they're not Ubisoft that has everyone striking. Like once every month at this point. But like it might just be creative differences. It might also be that like a lot of places are work from home friendly. Some aren't. There's a lot of things that go into creative differences.
the one main thing that I think could be incorporated into which could be a good thing for the industry, is spreading some of that PlayStation studio technique into into other
God, yes.
studios, and to see that land at the initiative, which, considering it was like a tentpole studio to attract the best talent, it's not exactly been marred in anything other than dirty rumours and controversy with very little to show for it. So to take someone that's, according to the research, has shipped some highbrow games against some pretty tough deadlines in the end, I think is a big boon for the initiative. And they were struggling with direction. If this comes and gives them a clear point of travel, it's good news.
Yeah, I
And
wonder how much one guy is going to be able to do, but I think this is a good news. Like,
if you've
I
got
don't.
your hand on the tiller, you
Yeah,
can probably make some effective changes. If he was going in as like, I don't know, engine creation or something like that, but creative director is pretty good, but we know the game's quite far along. So
I wonder what a creative director is going to be doing. Yeah, this far along though, like I feel like and also with a studio like as big as the initiative, I feel like if it was a 15-person team, one person means a lot. And
yeah, for sure.
yeah, if it's like yeah, I'm just going to be generous with the numbers. If it's a 130-person team, I'm like I'm not quite sure. Like at this point you
It
might be
depends where the game. I suppose if you're completely rudderless and the guys
yeah.
are all kind of working through their work dockets and doing their bits, but then they need someone at the top that goes right. Johnny's finished that. Mavis has finished this. Barbara's done that, and Sean's working on this. Now we stitch them together. Let me see what it looks like. Yeah, I hate
Mhm.
it. Do it again. Um,
Like a director
that's
at that point. Yeah.
yeah, creative director, right? He's
Yeah.
helping the creative, so he's helping them come up with the ideas and the techniques. One would imagine. Be nice to get someone in to explain to us exactly what the creative director role is, but I think it varies from studio to studio. But close
Yeah,
your
for
eyes and
sure.
imagine what it looks like, and it's pretty close. I think it's
This
good news in a
this tells
way.
me that the game's probably like 2026 versus 2025, like a lot of
Well,
people
that was the other
predicted.
discussion point.
Yeah.
A creative director comes along. What if he doesn't like what the previous creative director has done? We've seen footage of this running. I thought it looked pretty snappy. I think it needed to do something a little bit different, but they've gone for it. This guy coming along at this point is either to bring it home ASAP or it's to pick it up and kick the can down the road and add some of that insomniac juice to it. Maybe I don't even know anymore.
I'm hoping that this is just to streamline some systems and stuff like that. Maybe like helping out with side quests and such. Like
Well, that would be cool because you integrate them well and things start to look up, don't they?
yeah. So I'm hoping this is just more like adding a little bit more fluff. I'm hoping though, like to be fair, I also don't hope it's adding in a little more fluff because I think like I want us to get into a point in this generation to that, and I want this to be with the Initiative and Perfect Dark and Wolverine for that matter. I want those games to be shorter and more highly polished, shorter experiences. And I don't think games like those ilks need to be over 10 hours. I think like
No,
9 hours and below,
yeah.
perfect for those type of games.
Miles Morales hit just
Yeah.
right for a superhero game. I think Spider-Man 2 reminded me that I don't know why, but I always sit well with Spider-Man 1. There's something about the pacing, the look. It's permanently been on my PS5
Hmm.
hard drive
Less is
since
more sometimes,
the day I got it, and one
Yeah.
fits. Miles Morales was the perfect accompaniment, but it didn't overstay its welcome. Spider-Man 2 rocked up, and yeah, good game. But OMG.
I felt it in that third act, especially with
It,
the
it
Venom where he was like lifting up the city and all that. I was like, oh, I'm feeling the drag here now. This is you did not have to turn that game into Web of Shadows at the end to add like another Spider-Man game on top of the Spider-Man game we already had.
I felt like it could have took it down a notch or two and still have hit as hard. And by bringing it down a notch or two and cutting maybe, I'm going to chuck it out there, mate. Cutting 5 hours out the mid to end game, possibly some out the beginning as well, would actually have made a lot more consolidated product. You know what the video game industry's like? Is a bit like the motor industry. Oh, well, previous model went well, so we've got to make this one bigger, wider, longer, faster, and, some other bizarre metric. It's like, you don't need to do that here.
If any
Um,
game could have used a part one and a part two, it was Spider-Man 2. Like to where like split that game in the middle, make Craven like the main villain of part one, and then make Venom the main villain of part two.
that would have been beautiful.
Yeah, make them both Miles Morales size, but like split them off, and then you could have gave one of part one last year, part two this year, and I think like
Mm.
the whole narrative about that game would have been like way higher. I think.
especially if it left us just wanting more.
Oh yeah, at the end. Oh yeah, and
Like you said, at the end of it, you're like, yeah, Venom, just get on with it, mate, because I'm done
yeah,
here.
yeah. Imagine if they split. Like this is very very like spoilers for Spider-Man 2 people, but like there's a Mary Jane part that happens in Spider-Man 2 where like she goes through a bit of a transformation herself as far as like what her character's going through. If they split off the second game at the end of like or when you see the Mary Jane stuff happen, and I would have been like, oh wow, I really want to know what's going to happen
Or
next.
imagine leaving it there as well before any blows are traded, and then the next
Yeah.
game opens up with you going toe to toe.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, that would have been saucy, wouldn't it? I think I'd
That
have been because it's a fight that in its own in the middle of the game. I was kind of like, and how daring would it have been to go out on a non-boss finish as well?
oh yeah. This is what I'm saying. I think if we get to that Lost Legacy point where like Lost Legacy Miles Morales, and that's like the standard for all AAA games going forward, and then occasionally you do have your big 60 to 70 hour games, but like for the most part, keep them that 9 to 13 hour games.
Yeah,
And I think people, as long as they're
I
premium
think
film, people are still
I
going to
think
appreciate that.
I could stomach a 25-hour completionist
Oh yeah,
ability to give you a day's worth of activity to, because there's been times where I've sat down and plunged 15 hours into one gaming session. Well, that would be that done. Throat chop, you're out of
yeah,
here.
for sure.
Tombstone, flaming table, May Young giving birth to a glove. All that good
The
stuff.
hand, the hand with Mark Henry. Oh, sexual chocolate. But no, I think like yeah, no, but you're right though. But I'm like, I think like we don't necessarily need every game to be a Ubisoft open world adventure Odyssey game, especially like in our AAA space.
Well, I'm gonna chuck this out there, and I'm gonna have to get a toe if I'm not careful. Outlaws did not overstay its welcome,
I think that's the one thing
and
I
for
would extra shout out
Ubisoft,
about that. Yeah.
I was shocked by that. The end game sort of snuck up on me. I knew it was going to be short, but I didn't expect it to be that short. And I tried to hold off. As you know, I was like, no, 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 no. And in the end, I embraced it. And then the world was like,
You're
still
done.
livable.
Hmm.
For me, it was still livable. I just fly around playing Sabak. Love a bit of Sabak.
I want that to be a side game that they give for like $5, and I'd be all over it. I don't want to have to go and live in that world again. I just want to. I just want to play my Sabak.
Yeah, but it feels good walking into the Tatooine sort of Sabak place, brushing sand off your shoulders, sitting down, throwing a couple of. Why aren't the high stakes games more high stakes?
Yeah, like
You're still
here's
playing for
my
like 100 Star Wars dollars, right? It's like, no, high stakes. I expect that to say like 25,000 Star Wars dollars.
nah, man. Here's like the lesson they could have took from Starfield on that is like give us like interchangeable ships, and like ships are on the line, and because that's Star Wars, like like you'd have to
The
win
pink
back
slip
like
it up. Yeah.
yeah. I was like, make it to where like they feel like there's big stakes to where if I win in this game, this hand, I can win like this big cruiser, that I could sell or that I could fly in or different things like that. I'm like, I think there's so many quality of life things they could have done differently, but also like
The sad
stakes
thing
things they
is,
could have done.
we are never seeing a sequel for that game.
Is that sad?
I think that it is. I think that the lessons learned from the release of this first one would have produced an absolutely banging sequel.
Here's my thing. If we got a sequel, I wouldn't have wanted Massive to do the sequel. Massive, the same people who did the first one and the Division people. I would have wanted another team from Ubisoft, maybe even one of the Assassin's Creed teams, because I think like a lot of lessons to be learned there. But
I
like
think the danger was that they didn't put them on it in the first place, even though it ended up being
the Mirage
almost
team,
that.
they do smaller kind of like skill things. I'm like the Mirage team.
Yeah.
I would have preferred them on this versus
Sadly, they
like
were busy making
Division people.
Mirage.
Yeah, that nobody wanted to play.
But
But
no
like,
one wanted to play.
no,
I've seen that game at some frightfully low monies, brand new. And Mirage got Mirage got done dirty more than Outlaws, I think. But because it didn't have a big name attached to it, it was their own product. It was easier to brush under the carpet. I think that Outlaws was always going to have a lot of eyes on it because it's got the big name attached,
Outlaws
and that
also had a
hurt it.
pricing issue, I think, too. Like, I think for $70, that was a hard pill to swallow, especially considering how short it was and all that kind of stuff. It's like, if that would have come at the same price that Prince of Persia came at around that $40 point, I think the narrative about that would have changed. We would have lessened our
There's
expectations
no,
about it.
yeah, but that's when you've got to pay Disney the big fat monies for all that Star Wars stuff. $70 was going to be the cheapest that game was ever going to be.
So here's the problem with that, though. It's like if Disney and Ubisoft were going to come to a deal, and with those kind of price margins, they went to the wrong studio because like Ubisoft games in everyone who knows games and buys video games knows that that is the studio known for putting out a game that goes to the bargain bin faster than any other studio in the face of the world. Like this is the same team that put out Avatar, and this is why I bring this up because Avatar, another Disney property, came out and was $20 reduced almost 3 to 4 weeks after it came out. It's
yeah,
like
I just found that a really odd choice from the get go. Like Avatar. Wait, hang on, really?
I I think it is a really odd choice, Far Cry Avatar. But the point is, it's like they had a sample size of saying like, oh, your game's going to sell fast. Our price margins probably aren't going to align on like Disney taking their cut of the licensing fee versus Ubisoft production fee and all that kind of stuff. That game wasn't going to be profitable the way they wanted to be profitable from the get go, is what I'm
Mhm.
saying. It's like, and no one, like, very few people buy Ubisoft games day one. They're the Black Friday sales. They're the sales bin games to where like people will wait for those games versus any first party Sony game, like any first party Nintendo game. Those are like day one buys. You know what I mean? Like Zelda is not like a lot of people don't wait for Zeldas. They go out and buy Zeldas immediately when it comes out. Like GTAs, they go out and buy those immediately when it comes out. When an Ubisoft game, Assassin's Creed, for instance, is like, oh, when that drops on sale or when I have a gap in my schedule, that's when I'll go buy that game. You know? And
Mm.
I feel like on a licensed game, you have to think better than that. Like you can't that's not the studio for you then. Like that's why I think like Spider-Man works so well, at least like the first two games work so well because like there's expectations there that are different for PlayStation than they are for Ubisoft.
They had a little
The
bit of time, to be fair, to delay it into December, and I think that would have a pop-up store standee for Star Wars Outlaws in the month of December when Mumsy and Dadsy are prowling the shops. That would have been. Excuse
Bless
me.
you. That's why I
Thank
think
you.
Indiana Jones has the benefit right now of like Indiana Jones is coming out in December, and you know, like for Disney, there's nothing else, and none of their other properties competing with them, and also not very many games are coming out to compete with it.
I find it odd that they would. They're going to do their numbers on that on Games Pass, so that's not even going to benefit from store displays. The
No, they're bless you again. They're gonna get their
only,
money.
the
A
only
lot
time
of
they're going
them
to benefit from the store displays when PlayStation put one together for them.
are, you know, I hope they do Steam day one. You know, like Steam day one, and then PlayStation. Like Steam, they might do like Hi-Fi Rush numbers, which isn't great, but at least some profit there. When PlayStation gets it, it'll be a lot more. It'll be their second wave of profit.
Oh, yeah. And if
Yeah,
that game is half decent, it will be a tidal wave. I want to quickly, at this point, sir, if you check your beautiful little Discord messaging app, I
got
want to
it.
just shout out our wonderful, loyal supporters. The show is free. It will always be free. But if you've enjoyed or had very minimal pain from what you've listened to, guess what? We've got some tiers. $3 is going to get you a readout on every show, just as you're about to experience. $5 is going to get you a readout on every show and art merch yearly. $8 is going to get you read out on every show, art merch yearly, and access to the Inglorious chat, a little private section for paying members on the Discord. The Discord is free. Don't freak out. Everything is free. But if you want to pay a little bit, it's just a little bit of a tickle under the chin. $10 is going to get you all of the above tiers, and it's going to get you access to our quarterly Zoom meeting, which we're due. I think we're probably overdue one, actually. And that will just be a very light get-together of all of us like-minded characters where we show each other our pickups and other various behind-the-scenes UCP activity. Now, those brave adventurers that have supported the show, and here's a special Georgie offer that some of you have benefited from, and if you're sat on the wings, you're in Sweden, you're in Malaysia, we've even got listeners in Ukraine, all over the world. If you're listening, you think, actually, do you know what? Yeah, I was about to go buy a t-shirt, but for the price of a coffee, I get a t-shirt. So sign up right now and you get a t-shirt regardless of what tier you're on. I'm just feeling generous and very grateful for your loyal support. Straight out the gates, the first person with their loyal support is Carlos. Who's next?
You got Trestles, New York.
So I get firm returns and you get...
Bada Bingsta.
I get Tingle Tuna.
Digital Monkery.
And I get a Roast Space Monk.
The Gaming Gran.
Border.
Boba.
He said like Emperor Palpatine.
Boba. Yeah, that's what I was kind of trying to go for.
Take this Discord and strike me down. Join me at your father's side. He's still in it, right? He's a member of the cast now, but he's still paying his own. He's paying his way. It's Marathon Gaming.
Give him some unique voice, because I'm like, if he's gonna stay there, at least give him a voice.
I don't know what he'd want. Marathon Gaming.
That's good. We'll workshop that one.
Look, yeah. Listen. You wanted something, you put me on the spot. That's what I came up with. It's not my best work.
Seal Master Elliot.
My red-headed stepson Ginge, and we'll just check now with is she on the apps or not, Seb?
Emma Sharp.
Is she on the apps?
I'm gonna say yes this week.
Oh, commiserations, but hopefully you find Emma's not on the apps. Okay, it was a misspeak by OG Tom, and it's ended up becoming law. I get Harvey Retro.
Nowhere near Berlin.
The beloved Mumsies put money in the box.
The RGT fan club.
Apologies, because Carlos should have been the one-man George fan club, because even I deserve something, which means I get the immortal Pete Brocklehurst.
Billy Marmite.
Oh, look at the way this has worked out, which means I get Simon Pryke and you get...
Frat Zan Dave.
There's the Val Venus version for you. If you've heard your name be read out, we're very grateful to you. Thank you so much. If you're listening now, don't panic. The show's free. It'll always be free. It's always going to be in your free feeds. But if you want to contribute and get a little bit more involved, you can do. The first step for the road for that is the Discord. It's free. Ratchet up the tiers if you want to get even more involved, and the world opens up like a flower. Community corrections. We've got any, but did we miss an opinion or take on the news? If so, Seb, how would they get in contact with us and let us know that we just have no clue?
Look in the description of the episode. You will find all the links there. You can also go to Discord. You can hit us up on the Discord's more important, but you can hit us also up on the Instas and all that kind of stuff on the UCP channel. And that's pretty much it. You can also email us at the email in the description below as well. So, you got plenty of ways. I would recommend that Discord button though.
Oh, you make some like-minded gamer friends. I would say if you do want to support the show, you listen to this on a podcast or on the YouTube, go download it on Spotify, go in the description, little link at the bottom, all safe and secure. You can support the show there for as much or as little as you would like within the £3 and £10 tiers that we've created. That's all that good stuff done. Front end of the show. We're peering perilously close to the precipice of the end game of the show. And to that end, he's fresh back from the campaign trail wearing his Make America Great Again hat. He's looking what I would call fired up with campaign trail energy. So it's time for a peek in what we affectionately call these days past a longhorn smock, what's nestled between some cult paraphernalia and a dodgy copy of Battlefield Earth this week. These are new release highlights for the week. Ha ha! You might freshen up the script, Georgie boy, but did you freshen up the dates? No. November 4th to November 10th. Listeners, these are out digital or physical, or will be by the time this podcast in your feed, but could be region dependent. Now, who wants to give him a reach round first, me or ye?
I do not have the list, so I'm just going to say you go first, and I will workshop.
Okay, well, you work with me here, sir.
I got
First
you.
game, let me reach round. Now he's tuning up his guitar. It looks like his G-string's a little tight, so I'm going to help him ease that off while I grab Planet Coaster 2 on the PC, the Xbox Series X and PS5, November 6, 2024. Now, the first one was a big favourite of mine during the launch of the PS5. Create a splash with Planet Coaster 2, sequel to the world's best coaster park simulator. Can't argue with that. Pre-chip purchase Planet Coaster 2 now to receive the bonus ride collection containing 3 thrilling rides designed to give your guests an extra boost of fun. Out next from his little flesh pocket is Mario and Luigi Brothership on the Nintendo.
His flesh pocket.
Just play it deadpan. Wow. November 7th, 2024. The brothers return for a new adventure on the high seas. Set sail with Mario and Luigi, exploring islands, enjoying action-packed encounters, and tackling turn-based combat in Mario and Luigi Brothership on Nintendo Switch. Last one, and considering where I'm getting it from, this one's got a dubious title. It's Slit Ahead on the PS5, Xbox Series X, PC.
That made the list. The Slitterhead made the list.
It was to allow me to make a joke about Asta's manhood. We don't. These games are here for many reasons, some of which are script aiders. November the 8th, 2024. I must eliminate them all. The bodiless Hoyuki hunt down the brain-devouring slitterheads lurking in the alleys of a neon-lit city. Sounds like Ghostwire Tokyo, but what do I know about video games? We've only got a podcast about them. With all that said and done, what
it's a week, man. This one's a week.
I would recommend you join me hand in hand at the Hotel of Matrimony as we play Planet Coaster 2.
I will do my best.
Unless you want me to send you a Nintendo Switch OLED with Mario and Luigi Brothership attached.
God, you got me in a hard spot. I'll do Planet Coaster 2. I don't like horror stuff, and the Switch gives me hives now, so.
Okay. Some people are struggling to eat, and we're getting hives off slightly old technology.
Yeah. Yeah.
With all that said and done, we've decided our pasta vasa. That's all sorted. We've sipped the Kool-Aid. That's all done. Pasta's sat down cross-legged on his sort of rug. He's tuning his guitar up, ready for the outro. Now, before we get to that, I ask you, Triple S, what are you hoping to play?
All right, 30 seconds or less. I'm hoping to play these following games, everybody. I'm going to try to polish off Metaphor Refantagio. I'm on like hour 40, probably out of an 80-hour game. I'm hoping to polish that one off. I'm playing the Call of Duty campaign, Call of Duty Black Ops 6.
Wow.
Yeah, this is my first Call of Duty actual like deep dive into it, and probably like.
Who even are you?
Yeah, I'm gonna play the campaign only. I'm not a multiplayer guy, but so far I will say the campaign's pretty good. It reminds me of 007 and Hitman more than it actually does Call of Duty. So
wow,
yeah, and it feels like a Mission Impossible game almost in a Call of Duty setting. And so right now I'm having fun with it. They say it's like a 6 to 8 hour campaign, so.
It doesn't need to be anymore, does it? Yeah, no. Perfect.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to play that. I'm playing a little bit more of Undisputed, the boxing game. I think it's a little shallow in some of its parts, but I enjoy it for what it is. And
boxing game was always going to be, mate.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Especially with all the licensed fighters missing, a lot of the licensed fighters missing at least. And then I'm probably just going to I don't know. There's a game that I was sent a code for that I might have to play called Farming Simulator 25. And I'm not really sure. This is my first
What code
farming
is it?
sim
Is it a
game.
Steam code or a
I'll
console
check.
code?
I'll check the email after we're done, and then because I'm not really sure off the top of my head, I haven't even opened that email up.
You
and-
you just simmer down. Okay.
okay, I'm trying
That's
to do
my-
30 seconds less. I'm sorry. and
That's
30
my
seconds
game.
less.
I was playing 22 last night. That's how much of a fevered weirdo I am.
Oh God!
But I
And
didn't
then
feel the need to mention it because everybody knows I play that.
yeah. We kind of figured there was gonna be that or Anno or something of the ilk. You know.
I don't trade all my dirty secrets on air. Just the ones I dare talk about.
And that is pretty much it. I'm going through a rule. I want to get back to Horizon, but I have this rule for this year that I'm not going to replay a game I've already played this year.
And that's fair enough. I think
Yeah.
that's actually quite solid. I just haven't played this for a hot minute, and I want to see the world in this new fidelity that they've presented it in, and also just see how it changes my general sort of perception towards it. Forbidden West hit the high notes that maybe Zero Dawn didn't hit for me personally. It kind of picked up. I like how they took the time to reframe Aloy as well, like soften her during the course of that 60-hour game. It wasn't just an overnight snap. Oh, new game, new Aloy.
Yeah, for sure.
It took time to see her water down, and then by the end of it, it's like I don't mind spending time with this girl now. But in Zero Dawn, it's a bit like, Aloy, why would you do that? It's frustrating, but she was young, naive, didn't know a great deal, very inexperienced.
I like Aloy. I know a lot of
Locked
people
away in
don't.
solitude as she was for the early part of her life was always going to make interacting hard, but it wasn't signpost that clearly for a lot of people. They just thought she was obstinate for no reason, but there is reason, which is played out beautifully in the sequel. So it'd be interesting to see how some of that meshes in again with the lens of the sequel on. I'm quite intrigued to see how that.
Oh, the last game I'm going to play before I go. Dragon Age Felguard.
Yeah,
the last game I'm playing.
Pleasantly.
I'm a Dragon Age person,
good.
so I'm excited, but I'm not excited about the new gameplay style because I played Dragon Age because it was like a lot more of a strategy game, like a strategy with a light gameplay elements that had like action adventure elements to it. This one is an action adventure game that feels like you're playing more like Mass Effect 2 meets like actual, I'd say like God of War than actual Dragon Age. So that kind of ticks me off.
Yeah, that's thing is when you've got a game like that that's had its roots on older consoles and you're going to bring it here, you got to maybe pretend to try and freshen it up a little bit. Now that comes at the risk of alienating your existing users that have carried it on their back to this point, but you're desperate for new users. You're desperate for a new age demographic as well, because I would say quite a lot of Dragon Age gamers are
old farts, yes,
these days. Yeah. So
old farts for sure, but
this you've got to freshen it up. You're not going to draw them in with the same worn out mechanics that you've had for the last however many games.
Yeah, it's weird though, because this one plays like, you know how you were Kratos in Ragnarok and you can lightly control what Atreus and the other people did around you?
Yeah.
This one plays like that versus you being able to like, it plays like that in Guardians of the Galaxy, the latest Guardians of the Galaxy game, where you can just activate different people's like skill sets, which is a far cry from what it actually was. Yeah.
Yeah, which is great, but it doesn't, and this is a problem you see, and this is what I alluded to. Now, it doesn't sound like a Dragon Age game to me.
No.
It sounds like Hollywood's take on Dragon Age, which maybe it's what it needs.
I like BioWare, but I know like a lot of people love Mass Effect, and Dragon Age has always been the little brother. This might be a way to kind of like make that different, but it's already come out. The reviews are already so divisive on it. It feels like this is this year's Starfield, to where like the people who love this game are going to fight for it, but everybody else is going to play it and just be like done with it in a week. If that.
Yeah, I agree. I think people will get it. There'll be some people there that have got some nostalgia. There'll be some people there looking for a little bit of something. There'll be some Baldur's Gate 3 fans rocking up, right? There's going to be all of that carry on. So this game is going to be expected to do a lot that's not necessarily designed for. So, yeah, I think there's going to be some bounce off early doors. I think there's going to be some people that have read about Dragon Age but never played it, maybe watched a video on YouTube. They're going to wade in and it's going to be quite jarring, I think, for them. So it's interesting that the reviews have kind of hit that sort of division point. I think if you've got memory of Dragon Age, you might come in with some rose tinted. If you don't really have any at all, the game's going to get probably a pretty straight appraisal based on what it's presenting right now.
This is a topic for another show, but like I think this is a topic worth having. I want to broach it here so I don't forget it. Like, I think with Dragon Age, with BioWare, with Starfield and Bethesda, I think there might be a conversation here of like, are these old studios reached their apex and now are living off their glory days? Or like, are they still relevant? Are these studios still relevant in 2024 of gaming? Because I'm like, Starfield ain't hidden like it was supposed to, which brings on Fallout 4 didn't hit like it was supposed to. BioWare with Anthem, with Mass Effect Andromeda, and now a divisive Dragon Age game. Is BioWare hitting like it's supposed to? I'm like, or has gamers?
Yeah, hang on a minute though. Isn't my memory saying that there was around the same time as Mass Effect Andromeda using the same engine? Didn't they crunch out a Dragon Age game then?
No, that was Inquisition. Yes.
Yeah, that didn't hit as well, did it?
Inquisition was like IGN's game of the year, but it was also like it has a Metacritic score of like 84 or 85.
I just don't remember anyone talking about it.
I love that game, but I also know that game is a niche game that also probably shouldn't have won Game of the Year for a lot of outlets, considering, like, if Metal Gear Solid Phantom Pain was a complete game and Hideo didn't have the split, Metal Gear would have won that year. It's like the MLB team that won a championship, but like the favorites going into that year all got hurt. And you're like, this is kind of a Mickey Mouse championship. We know, if this other team didn't get hurt, you wouldn't have got anything close to Game of the Year. Also, like, it doesn't help that year also had like its top 5 contenders are high 70s, low 80s. So I'm like, it was one of the weakest years in video game history. So, anyways, what else are you hoping to play besides that?
And a little bit of Frostpunk, probably a little bit of Farming Simulator, and that's me done. I'm not looking at being too greedy, and I'm probably just looking to sink the weekend into Horizon Zero Dawn.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I've got nothing better to do. So
why not? Are you ready to tune up, Pastor?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, start strumming. That's all we have time for this week. Listeners, always thank you for your time. We look forward to the pleasure of speaking to you again next week. Until then, happy gaming. Remember, there's nothing wrong with being given the unofficial control. It's what you do with it that counts. See you, Seb.
Bye.
Take it away, Pastor. George and Seb rolling down the road. RGT riding shotgun, heavy load. Past a Longhorn waiting to unfold.
I love the way you hit that note just now.
Texas tales been told. One arm big, a sight to see. Pastor preach, set you free. George and Seb, they bend the knee. RGT nodding yes in glee. Join the cult in El Paso town, where Pastor Longhorn's got his crown. One arm high, the other down. We're the wildest show around. Sunday's hot, the desert air. George and Seb both feel the glare. Longhorn's words hang everywhere. Salvation found without a care. Sunday's hot, the desert air. George and Seb both feel the glare. Longhorn's words hang everywhere. Salvation found without a care. RGT plays a sacred tune. Underneath